Welcome to the Digital Dialogue. Greg Whitby, the Tsar of Catholic education in the Golden West. So you're celebrating 200 years this year of Catholic education in the diocese. You don't look 200, though you might feel it after the pandemic adapting. Can I ask how do you celebrate such an incredible milestone in the constrained celebratory circumstance of the pandemic?
A good question, Chris. And how we've approached it is that we're doing it from the ground up. It's the story of our schools. And we're the sum total of that. And of course, when they first started, there's no such thing as systems and that. So we're getting them to tell their story. That's what we're doing. We're asking them to tell their story and then establish the links. We had planned a very big second half of the year. We were going to have do an old government house and the Prime Minister. And
I cleared my diary for it.
Yeah, a big mass and all those sorts of. They've all gone by the wayside. So we've switched to looking at some digital assets. We're building a repository for schools to dip into. But we're asking our schools just to tell the story. In the latter half of the year, we'll collect them and say, this is where we are now. It's not that we're better off or better or worse, but it's the story that needs telling. And as you know, the first Catholic school, in fact, one of the first schools in the colony, was down in the top of Hunter Street. And it was set by the Catholic Church and by John Terry, and had a lay principal. And then in the 30s moved into Sydney. But, since then, the Catholic schools have had a presence in Parramatta. And, the story of education in Western Sydney, a lot of it's based on Catholic schooling.
My daughter was baptised in the chapel of Father John Terry. But as you know, I'm a regular product of the Sunday morning St Patrick's Cathedral in Parramatta, but not a product of Catholic education. And there was a mother and a father influenced separately at work there. But it's been a pretty proud record. I said that continuous education across a region. Just really, people know your region stretches pretty much up to the northwest and about half of the southwest.
Yeah, we go from Duck Creek, on the other side of Rydalmere, just before Silverwater Road, up into past Katoomba, and then down to the water pipe down to Fairfield Way, then up into the Wollombi National Park.
God's own country, the lot of it.
Yeah, so about 45,000 kids and several thousand staff. Massive infrastructure investment in Western Sydney, and we're investing another $200 million over the next 12 months. Got some exciting schools opening. So we've got a proud story. We're not triumphant about it. We've done it well, but sometimes we have to put our hands up and say we haven't been as good as we could.
Look, to that point, let's kill it early. There's been a dark side to part of the 200 years of Catholic education everywhere. It's no secret anymore, luckily. Where does the diocese fit currently with the whole rebuild trust in the community for some of the ills of the past? What are the protocols there now that mean it never happens again? How do you be that educational institution in a different world now?
We've got a bishop who's relatively new in terms of bishop life, who's made it very clear. His first public statement was he stands with the marginalised, he stands with the victims.
Yeah.
And he expects us to live up to that. We have all the procedures and processes in place that you would expect, and we have to have. We weren't dragged to that situation. It was probably an oversight, and a society probably dropped the ball on its care for young people. But locally, again, it goes back to in the schools, in the local setting, and being very proactive. We work from the schools. Yeah. It's not. We can mandate as much as we like, but unless we've got processes that we regularly check at the local level, and we're very public and transparent about it.
I can ask you 200 years of history that we're celebrating this year, but looking forward, you're soon going to open the first STEM school in New South Wales in partnership with Celestino out at the Sydney Science Park at Luddenham. Yep. That's got to be a pretty exciting future if you're based in the heritage of what you've got as well.
Well, we're building on the past. I'm sure there are new technologies in 1820 that are standard people. And they cut the time down to Sydney so that they can move to Sydney. And we're just building on that. Look, Chris, what we've set out here over the last several years is to do something like, as a general comment, current schools are very inefficient, very ineffective, high cost, and maintain the status quo. Now, you've got to ask yourself, even pre-COVID-19, whether that can be sustained. And when you're looking for improvement methodologies, they're just looking at more of what we've been doing. So if more doesn't work, you've got to do something different. So we've moved into, forget the improvement model. We don't want to improve that practice. That was then, that was an analogue world. We need to move to a digital world. We moved to an analogue asynchronous to a digital synchronous world, and then work out how we can provide that schooling. So we go move from an improvement process to transformation. This is an opportunity with a blue sky to really take it to the edges. We know what good learning and teaching is. We never compromise on that. But the opportunity now, and COVID-19, of course, has been a bit of a, I don't want to say godsend. This is not a God plague, but it's been a bit of a wake-up call of what's possible. A lot of our schools across the state, not just our schools, but if you're talking locally, Friday, teaching one way, Monday, all the kids are at home, and now they.
Well, you're specially made for these times. You're a bit of a contrarian. I know you're an innovator in education. As you said, the world's changed remarkably, both in the past couple of months and in the past 10, 20, 30 years, remarkably as well. It just strikes me that the classroom, bell goes at 9 in the morning, goes at 3 in the afternoon, 5 days a week, 40-something weeks a year. It seems to be a place that's resisted change more than most. Maybe that's protect our kids and change. But where do you see that big change coming?
It's a good point. I don't want to blame schools in this. We focus on that, and you're right. But society has to take a piece of the problem, ownership of the problem. Like the curriculum and the time of school usually terminated by the bus company when the buses can come and pick them up. Parents, you try and bring in change, and we've found that that they are very resistant to change. The travel industry is based on school holidays. When you start challenging those things, so you go from everything's controlled and everything is planned ahead to you do it as it happens. This is the asynchronous world of the analog world. When you move it into the digital synchronous, when you've got real time, any place, the opportunities become boundless. And one of the interesting feedbacks we got when we talked to our schools and the parents, they were actually able to say, look, we usually spend about 3 hours, maybe 3.5 or 4 hours with the kids, and that was enough. And then they had the freedom to do it early or late and provide a whole range of time. Now, that's not a universal experience, but it shows you what's happened. It's behind our thinking. We have several schools now, Marsden Park and Box Hill is about to come online next year, and the Science and Tech Park, that are fundamentally different. They're built into the community. They have 24/7 access. We enrol from the age of 3 through to post. We're getting rid of that exit period and then all the HSC that goes with it. And we're saying, you come to us, you will get an experience of a learning journey that will set you on a path of continuous learning. And
some of my best work was the 3 years I spent in Year 10.
Yeah, it's a blended, and it's not going to be an either or. And we will still need teachers and all those sorts of things, but it will be very, very different.
To be Greg, I know there's a bit of a fear in the public sector that there might be a move away from parents who in this time can't afford their private school fees. I know you're not running the GPS level, but there's a fee base, and they're having to make provision. There's a decision for public sector across the country. Does it either subsidise the fees of those students to keep them there, or does it have to build thousands of more temporary accommodations for students in the public system straight away? Are you seeing any cost pressure that's going to cause a significant material shift of from private back to public and to carry the load?
The simple answer is no. We have had requests. We put out if you're having trouble with the fees, please do it. We had probably in excess of 2,000 requests for some sort of fee relief. We're dealing with that at the moment. We will not be asking any child to leave school who's enrolled in school if the issue is not. We've made that very clear. As I speak today, we're about 92% of attendance. We have not yet had any data, but we're asking I'll know tomorrow if there has been any leakage. We thought there may be some leakage. But I want to make this point, Chris. The issue of our school fees, there is a top-end school that says the top end of the market, the more expensive it is, the more the enrolments increase, because when people want to buy exclusivity.
The Mercedes approach, yeah.
Then you come down, etc. Now, even within the government sector, there are fees and charges in many schools, and they're sitting on a lot of money to do things in the future. I'm not saying they're wasting it; they're being very prudent. But the issue of the cost sensitivity. If you can, weather the storm, and it will certainly impact on our bottom line, the fee reduction. But we want to hold on to them.
That's great news.
Until we can get them through it.
Anthony Manning at School Infrastructure is pretty excited to hear that too, because
yes, well, that's right.
We've got to build thousands more. I came up in schools full of demountables, we called them in the day. It's not a great way to be educated. We'd hate to see to go back.
Well, you know what happened in the CBD if we here in Parramatta, let alone our pressure points back down Marston Park. I mean, and there isn't even a government school at Marston Park, so.
Yeah. Hey, I can still remember the day that Bob Hawke announced all kids, to try and address what were terrible levels of retention in senior school, that all kids should be encouraged to stay on. And I think the policy ended up being you have to be at school till you're 17 unless you're gainfully employed, etc., which is a wonderful policy. I fully support it. There's been an unintended consequence, though, but Western Sydney not escaping that. A bunch of kids sitting in a classroom who don't really want to be involved in ongoing academic work, sitting next to kids who do, and of course, how do we not fail those kids? While they should be at school, how can we have a blended curricula that has them engage in things that might necessarily lead to further tertiary education, but might add to their vocational?
I answered what I said at the beginning about the improvement and the transformation. The problem we have at the moment is one size fits all. And the issue is if you don't fit, the harder the fit, the worse your experience of schooling is, and we can go through that. And having this artificial primary, secondary and tertiary, and having cut-off points at year 12, you're ready, at 12 years of age, you're ready to go into secondary, at 17 or 18, you're ready to go to work, and it's all controlled. We've taken the approach, I've just mentioned those several schools, their diversity is the norm. They have a core, but they're free to respond to the local needs and to build partnerships where you've mentioned the fact we're in partnership with a range of people because you can't do it yourself. That's the way forward. The second thing is, in the Fin Review yesterday or the day before, certainly, there was a great article about the skills issue. Now, there's a lot of ill-informed understanding about the skills. People tell you about the skills they want. But when you talk to employers, what they don't want industry-specific skills per se. I'm not talking about like plumbing and those sorts of things, but you've got that. But what they'll say is what we want them to be is ready to learn because they're working in a dynamic industry that they're actually learning how to do. They want people to help them. And that's the approach, not the old bog standard, well, you do this and you do that. And as the article finished up saying, we've got a 40-year-old curriculum for chickies that was designed 40 years ago. And he said, we don't build houses like that anymore. I was watching the people do the fitting out here. They want to do any measurement. Out comes the laser.
Well, Greg, but I'm looking constantly for staff who have a bachelor in creative thinking, a doctorate in strategic engagement, and economies have changed, skills have changed, schools as well. I'm conscious of your time.
I want to finish this off. We call that end now like 15 plus, the post, and we have a range of possibilities. You can come and do an HSC, you can do part of an HSC, you can do part of a uni course, blah, 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 but you name them. And we've opened our first school where you can come and say, I want to do this, and they'll design it for you.
Wow.
So you don't just get it off the shelf. So you come in and say you want to do microastrophysics or something. Well, we don't do that, but hang on. We will partner with the people who can help us do that. So we're building that different relationship. And it's not like the traditional model. And, we want to get rid of those artificial blockages and hurdles that you jump over, like the HSC, which has had reached its use by date by any stretch of the imagination.
Let me throw one on the other side of education. We can all look to, my favourite movies, To Sir with Love or Dead Poets Society. Those concept of the Mr. Holland's opus, those inspirational teachers. And we've all had one. If you're lucky, you have more than one or two in your life. You employ a lot of people. Sure, you've got plenty in your system. But what I'm looking for is in future the inspirational approach beyond the 3 R's of the traditional parts of education. What about the extra R? I'm a father of young males. That R for resilience. How does the school, and not to take my responsibility as a parent away, but how do I share that with schools to teach a kid who has how to fill in a bank application, how to survive a relationship breakdown, how do we adapt a modern curricula that obviously meets the technical requirements, but just better equips citizens of the future?
That's probably the most powerful question that you'll ever ask, Chris. The answer to that question from our point of view is that you've got to equip them to learn. They have to learn the future. And unfortunately, the model of schooling today builds failure as an expectation. In fact, our system is structured on the fact that you will go to school and you will fail. Right? We know that before you go because we have assessment processes saying that you're here or you're here. I have a brother who was, same family, but hopeless, and it ruined his life forever because he forever felt a failure. Now, I'm not against competition and learning and all those sorts of things, don't get me wrong. But what we need to do is have assessment processes that are actually life-giving, that recognise failure and are supportive and give them the skill set to know to ask. At the moment, if you haven't been a class, think back in your own mind, I'm not going to put my hand up, or when the teacher sort of pins your nose, he's going to have his fun by belittling you. They're the things that cumulatively, once they experience that failure and that they're no good at school, and as my brother once said to me, I failed school, and I was shocked. I said, how can you fail school? And he said, because I hated it and it hated me. So
it was mutual.
Yeah, and then that learning and then the relationship between the teachers as they become less of an oracle and a controller to a curator and a supporter of learning in that process, and show that failure is actually good learning. And that's the nature that we need to build into the curriculum and stop putting these stupid examinations in their parts, which doesn't mean that we don't have exams, but we don't make them high stakes.
Can I ask, you've got classes to clean and an education system to run to hold you up. But you came with us to East London last year, part of the Western Sydney leadership tour that went and looked at an urban region. You've also just been through massive change, like we all have, adapting the agility to adapt to a pandemic and still provide essential service. How all those things change you? You've been a lot of stuff in recent times. You've got 200-year celebration. Greg Whitby, the bloke, the provocateur, the innovator, the contrarian. How's it changed you, and how are you going to kick off the next 200 years?
It was, and I'm often sick and tired of hearing you around there. It's one of these things, you should have been there. I've got to stop saying that. The seeing what was achieved, such a short, one of the major takeouts for me is when we had that view of what it was like at East London, Canary Wharf, and so this place, you'd want to nuke it. and create a big swimming pool or something. And no, bang, and like virtually overnight, right? Virtually overnight, this thing about change and innovation,
yep.
You've got to seize the day. And all the things that went with it, there was boldness, there was a step into the unknown. They got things wrong when they did Canary Wharf, and thought the people weren't going to come and live there, and then guess what? The people came and lived there, so what did they do? They didn't sort of, we're going to nuke it. They said, hey, hang on, let's retask it. And I'll remember forever that the container coffee shop, and then talking to those, remember I ran into the pub with that bloke, and he's telling me his story. He's bloody hoping at the school now. He's got his own brewery, and
when you led us all astray, I remember it well.
But that's the curriculum.
All I can say is trust the Catholic to find the bar. I mean, it was a good, reassuring sign.
But we got everybody in. There was a great story.
Yep, it's wonderful.
His story, he actually said to me, he said, I would never have dreamed while I was at school. Never at all that was possible.
Yeah.
And with Lend-Lease behind him, a bit of a kick along and saying, you can do this, get his brother and his mates in, and look what they've done. And
it's a great message. Great message to us all.
Saying, we don't have all the rubbish in a lot of our greenfields, so we don't have to worry about pulling out docks and all that sort of stuff. We've got a fantastic opportunity. But the thing to answer your question specifically, it's the blink. Bang, you can do this.
Yeah, as Barack Obama said, yes, we can. Well, you have for 200 years, mate. Please continue to be the agitator within. I know you're an agitator within the Catholic system as well as to education generally. Absolutely front foot, true leader of Western Sydney. Mate, thank you for your time. Stay safe.
Okay, thanks, Chris, and go the Bulldogs.
Oh, it's mighty else tonight. By the time the punters see this, we'll be 3-0.
Good on you.
Happy 200th birthday. See you, Greg.
Thanks, Chris.